If there's anything I have learned in the story of being an entrepreneur, it is to go for it. If you are questioning yourself, debating, thinking if you should, or whether or not someone is going to respond to you, fucking go for it anyways. You literally have nothing to lose. And what's the worst that can happen? You don't get a response. So that all comes to our podcast interview today with Jean Chatzky. I responded to one of her newsletters. Her team responded to me immediately, and we got her on the podcast. The cool thing about this is, number one, I never thought I would have gotten a response or she would have responded. And second to that, not only did she say yes, she jumped on pretty quick. And I think you are going to love the interview. Jean Chatzky is the founder and CEO of Her Money and the coaching programs FinanceFixx and InvestingFixx. So yes, she is another fellow female in finance guru when it comes to money. She's the host of the podcast, Her Money Podcast, and Everyday Wealth. She's the financial ambassador for AARP and the financial editor for NBC for the last 25 years. She's an award-winning journalist and broadcaster, New York Times and Wall Street best-selling author, and a fierce advocate for financial literacy. So can you see why I just love her and how aligned we are? Her latest books are Women with Money, The Judgment-Free Guide to Creating the Joyful, Less Stressed, Purposeful, and Yes, Rich Life That You Deserve, and How to Money, a guidebook for Gen Z women. So, my PowHERHouses, please tune in to my chat with Jean. Jean Chatzky, I am so excited for you to be on the show. And so, of course, being someone who has started a financial planning firm for women, you have been somebody that I have looked up to and admired for over a decade. And so this is a super cool full circle moment for me. So I'm just nerding out a little bit. So it's so cool. And I'm so grateful that you're taking the time to be on the podcast to not just talk about, of course, money and the things that you're doing, because you know just as well as I, women need this so much, to hear about your journey. And when we did an interview call to Jean, it was just so interesting. You know, I look up to you and I admire you, and I'm like, man, you're this incredible force that is doing all of the things that I aspire to be. And you so humbly were like, oh, I don't feel like it, you know? It surprised me, but then talking to so many other entrepreneurs that we have on the show, many of them say the same thing. So first of all, welcome. And I would just love to hear a little bit of how you got started, Jean.
Absolutely. I'm very happy to tell you. I just want to say thank you so much for having me here, because right back at you. I mean, the work that you are doing, particularly in this space for women, is so important. We can focus on the tactics of money management. We have a little bit of an easier time with that, but when it comes to building wealth and acknowledging that that's a goal for us, as it should be, a lot of women have trouble wrapping their hands around that. And so I admire the work that you guys are doing, and I'm very, very happy to be here. As I told you, did not start out being particularly good with money, my own or anyone else's. I was an English major in college. I got in over my head in credit card debt. Shortly after I got out of college, I was working as a journalist, not making a ton of money, but, making some. And I was not managing it well. I wasn't tracking where it was going. I wasn't paying particular attention. I was living my life on one track and managing my money on the other, which, as we know, never works. It has to be a cohesive effort. And I was working at a magazine called Working Woman, which no longer exists, but was a very interesting combo platter of a magazine. It had food, it had fashion, it had careers, and it had business. And I was working with the business editor as her assistant and quickly realized I liked writing about business. I liked writing about personal finance. And so I went in that direction. Therapists would say, you recognize the problem and you go in search of a solution for that problem. And my problem was that I was not very good with my money. And so I wanted to learn. And I learned on the job. I've been a personal finance reporter for 35 years at this point, and have worn a lot of hats. But what this job gave me was the ability to talk to the smartest people anywhere about money and ask them any question that I had, and then re-ask it when they gave me an answer that was filled with lingo and information that just didn't make sense to me. And what I realized along the way, and what I've taught as a response, is that it's not rocket science. Managing your money is good habits, often repeated. We don't all have to be hedge fund managers or day traders. We have to save enough. We have to invest it. We have to protect it. Hopefully, we buy some real estate along the way. And that's how most people manage to build enough wealth to last them as long as they live.
Yeah, I love that. And you're right. It's, it's so overcomplicated. Or I mean, that's not how I meant to phrase it, but we tend to make it more complicated than it needs to be, to your point. And I think in part of that is because for so long, all of these men in finance have been talking about it in a lot of jargon, in high level terms, and with such an ego that they made it seem as though, well, that's not attainable for us. We can't reach that. When you break it all down, not only can we reach it, I believe there are studies that once women do start investing, even though we're not investing as much as men are starting as soon as they are, we're better at it. And so
it's so true. And we see this. So I've got a course that I teach with Karen Feinerman, who is on CNBC. She is a hedge fund manager. Yeah. And for the past couple of years, we've been running this ongoing investing club for women. And we call it InvestingFixx, where we teach investing every other Monday night on Zoom. If your audience is listening, I hope that or if they're interested, I hope that they'll check it out and join us. We spell InvestingFixx with 2 X's because, of course, we decided to complicate things. But we teaching fundamental analysis, how to pick a stock, how to talk about stocks, how to decide if you should buy NVIDIA or buy Meta or buy other companies that you come into contact with every single day. And the women in our investing club pick the stocks that we put into our portfolio, and our portfolio is beating the market, which tells me yet again that women are really good at this.
Yeah, they are. And I love how you're doing this and making it accessible to everybody. And so we will definitely share that link in the show notes. No doubt, you guys, we get this question all of the time. You want to be more educated on investing. We're providing it. So check that out. And so, Jean, you started as a reporter asking all of these analysts and finance pros, if you will, about money and starting to, I'm guessing, also say to yourself, well, if they're the smartest in the world, how can I apply this to me? So how did that journey start for you, from converting the not so aligned lifestyle and money habits perhaps, and then working into learning that, but then becoming a finance guru yourself?
Yeah. So I just started walking the talk. basically. By that point, I was working for a magazine called Smart Money, which was personal finance. But inside the halls of Smart Money, we would often call it Real Life Magazine because we would do stories on the things that were happening in our lives. And then we would follow the advice of these really smart people. And so I vividly remember I was pregnant twice when I was at Her Money. And I remember after my first was born, waking up in the morning and thinking, oh my gosh, I need life insurance. And so I got assigned a story on life insurance and figured out what was the right thing to buy and went out and bought it. Smart Money magazine was the child of two big publishing companies. It was the child of Dow Jones and Hearst. We had a big PR effort, and our PR guy got a spot for my editor-in-chief on the Today Show, the early morning version of the Today Show. And he did it one time, came back complaining that it was 5 a.m, and B, they didn't have any coffee, and said he was not going back. And so we took turns. Anybody who had written a story was able to go on and talk about that story. And the week that I went, the producer took a liking to me and just asked me to be the person who came back. So I did that on the local version of the Today Show in New York for 3 years, and then got picked up on the national Today Show. And I like to think that I am not that much better with my money than a whole bunch of other people. What I'm really good at is explaining it. I can take really complicated concepts, understand them, and explain them in language that people can understand, but also absorb. And I think that's what helped me build a brand, build a platform, do the kind of things that I've had the good fortune to do through the years, write a lot of books, give a lot of speeches, build Her Money, which is my company focused on personal finance for women, and help a lot of people along the way, which has been so nice.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, honestly, that's where the value is, right? People aren't going to take action and change their life if they don't understand it. They don't understand how or know how that applies to them in plain English. And so, and that's something too that we've done so much of is not only taking all these complicated things and breaking them down and making them simple, but also relating it to our personal lives or storytelling. And we're so much more alike than we are different. But I oftentimes we think, oh, if we're the only one dealing with this, or I'm the only one that could possibly be in this terrible situation and be making this much money. And the reality is like, you're not alone, first of all. Second of all, it's definitely figure outable. It's just hearing the information and being able to apply it. And I think that's where a lot of your content and material is special, because it is easy to digest, and then therefore you can take action on it. And that's the only thing that matters when it comes to building wealth is you can have all the information and knowledge in the world, but if you don't apply it, you're not going to make any kind of change or long-term wealth building. It's all the things that you apply and stick to on a consistent, disciplined period of time. And when you were getting started, of course, in building your own brand from being used to working in a career as an employee, what are some of the significant challenges that you faced in doing that?
So I feel like I did a couple of things that are sort of smart moves along the way. Brands are not built overnight, right? I maintained my day job for a lot of years, for a good 15 to 20 years, while I was building a brand on the side, while I was writing books and going on television. I was also working a 9-to-5 job. And that gave me the base level of income that I needed in order to take chances, take a few risks with what I was doing in this brand building exercise. And so I'm a big don't quit your day job believer while you're trying to figure out if this brand that you're building has legs. That's sort of the first thing that I did. The second thing, and I've continued to do it, is to diversify in terms of income sources. And I think people learned that lesson a bit with side gigs, but with the fact that people float in and out of not just jobs these days, but startups and other things, having a variety of income sources is, I think, the new security. Because then if one fades, and believe me, that has happened over my career more times than I could count. If one fades, you're not in a panic. Yes, you have a little bit of ground to make up, but you know that you have the skills to go out and build another channel, replace that source that faded away. But you also have enough there to keep yourself going. So I think that that's good. The other big challenge I think that I've faced, and this is not going to be a surprise to any entrepreneur, I think by far hiring good people is the biggest challenge. I think finding those people that you trust, but also can work with and who make you better that's what it's all about. And I've been really lucky that I have worked with some of the people that I've worked with for a very long time, not just in my partnerships, but in my business as well. People who have just, they've grown alongside me, and that's been remarkable. But I still find hiring the hardest thing that I ever have to do.
It is so hard. And it's hard to find people who care and want to work and want to show up, right? And I can tell you, it's been a huge challenge for us. All of my friends that build businesses, it's like, where did all the good employees go? But when you find them, treat them like gold. And one of the biggest things that I had, and I don't know if you ever went through this, but like the comfort and being confident in hiring people smarter than me, right? And being okay with that and knowing that, hey, I'm stacking my team with the right people and I want all of them to be smarter than me and their own unique zones of genius that yes. I had a weakness in. And that was something that I struggled with in the beginning, of course, that like toggle of ego. But then as soon as I learned that to be like the best thing that I could ever do, it helped so much. And then developing almost like these little entrepreneurs within the organization allow them to have extreme ownership over their positions and let them run with that was also scary because I'm a control freak. But it helped them grow the company so much better. And so, I'd love to hear, Jean, and over the years, as you've grown, like some of the things that you found worked really well in recruiting the right people. But then if you have any things that like a best practice that you think would be helpful to share as far as even retaining them once they're there.
Well, I think you clued right into it. It's all about autonomy and giving them the capacity to be creative, to follow through on not just your ideas, but their own ideas. You've got to respect their ideas as much as they have to respect yours, and let them get the credit. Let them grow with you and with the organization. I've also been incredibly conscious of not just hiring people smarter than me, but hiring people younger than me. I always have people in their early 20s because they are more up on technology, more up on what's current, more up on what's going to resonate in the marketplace. I have a new reporting assistant who has been with me now maybe 6 months, and they're fabulous because they get me, but they also get the landscape. And so what this person has been able to do in helping me on social media has been really great. Yeah. For my part, I had to trust them. And I have trouble with that sometimes, right? Mm-hmm. This has turned out for me to be a very good hire because this is going to sound awful, but I'll say it anyway. I have a habit of hating my new reporting assistants for the first 3 to 6 months that they are with me, because it's always a learning curve. It's always hard. It's just, I know that I'm going to hate them for 3 months and then we're going to be fine. That didn't happen this time around. There was a very, for me, a very good personality. This person has just a very calming personality, and so we were able to get it going from the get go. So I think that the trust was there from the start.
I love that. That's interesting, and it's a good point in hiring younger people because, and again, this is going to sound terrible, but I think sometimes, I've had conversations with friends of mine, like the younger generation is hard sometimes. I mean, the way that they see things, do things, it's just different to accept that and then importantly embrace it was also a little bit of a hurdle for me. But now that I have, to your point, like their insights are so helpful. And to even have that perspective, because we're not speaking to just one age, demographic, it's all across the board. And they are so in tune to this rapidly changing environment and black hole of social media. Like,
yeah,
but you have to nowadays. Like if you don't adopt the social media and AI and how that is changing and forecasting it, like you're out of business. And so, I agree. It's definitely an important thing to take into consideration and just getting those different perspectives too. I think I try to be hypersensitive to not being in my own tunnel,
exactly.
And broadening that. And it's easy to do when you're in the grind every day. And once in a while you have to like poke your head up and be like, okay, what am I not seeing? What am I missing? And what do we need to digest? And where are things headed? Because now they change even quicker than they had before. And so, keeping your thumb on the pulse or whatever that expression is so important. So cool. I love that. And so, is there anything else too that I think, and now that you've been in so many different areas of business and building the different income streams, and you really have like this money empire at this point, which I think is goals, right? For so many people who are looking to not only build a recognizable brand, but to have it be diverse in terms of income stability when things fluctuate. What's been one of your biggest or best lessons?
I think the very best lesson is when opportunities present themselves, take them. I did not know that I was going to write a book until I had been on the Today Show for a couple of years, and somebody called me, and a publisher called and said, how about writing a book? I thought, okay, I'll write a book. I hadn't thought about giving speeches until, again, after a few years on the Today Show, one of my colleagues had a speech he was supposed to give. He couldn't do it and asked me to sub. And I was terrified, by the way, because talking to a live room full of people is so much more frightening than talking to a camera. But the money was good. So I wanted to do it. So I gave a speech, and eventually it became a big part of what I do. There will be things that present themselves to you along the way. Just because they're not part of the original plan doesn't mean they're not a good part of the eventual plan. So at least entertain them. And if you can get yourself to try, you might discover something that you like, that you're really good at, that's profitable, that could help grow your business. So I am a big believer in yes.
I love that. Even when it's terrifying, right?
Even when it's terrifying.
Second thing or time that you even mentioned, jumping in for somebody else and having it work out, and trusting that instinct. So that's huge, and yeah, we're going to have a vision and a plan, but the ability to be nimble and accept those opportunities can really put you in such a cool space and open your eyes up probably to things that you never thought would even be possible for yourself. You didn't see yourself here 20, 30 years ago. And so I think that's the most special, right?
Yeah, absolutely. No, if you had asked me in my early 20s what I would be doing, first of all, I didn't envision the world that we're in today. I would have told you that I would have been the editor of Glamour magazine. Like that was coming out of college. I was like, I'm going to work in magazines. I'm going to be an editor. Hopefully, eventually I'll be the editor. That's what I would have told you.
Yeah. And look at where you are now.
Very, very, very different. But,
yes.
but I've enjoyed it all the same, maybe more.
I hope so, right? And
Yeah.
so thank you. And before we end, is there anything or a last message that you want to leave the listeners with, Jean?
I think the final message that I would leave anybody thinking about their money with is that it really all comes back to being conscious. That if you're having an issue with your finances today, whether it's credit card debt, whether it's a lack of disposable income, whether it's an investment portfolio that's not working for you or something else, you've got to get honest about the numbers. And then you let the numbers lead you to the truth and out of the problem. Where I see people struggling for long periods of time, it's because they don't want to deal with the underlying problem. They put their heads in the sand. It happens in business, it happens in life. And so go back to the numbers when you're having an issue and let them tell you what's really going on and lead you out. And if, again, if you're having trouble with the numbers and you need some hand-holding to get yourself on the right financial track, that's something that we do at Her Money as well in our FinanceFixx classes. But it's really just that open, honest conversation with yourself about what's coming in, what's going out, and where it's going.
Yeah, I love that. Taking extreme ownership and personal accountability, the numbers always tell a story. So thank you. Thank you so much, Jean. I appreciate your time. And until next time, my powerhouses, continue to be courageous.